Hi, everybody. I'm back again. And for those of you who are just tuning in, I my name is Beth Wagner, and I am currently reading. Um, I'm going to try and read a manuscript that hopefully is not being sat on by a cat. Hold on, come on, shut, shut, shut. There we go. Ta-da! Anyway, so yeah, for those of you just tuning in, I am reading my dad's manuscript, and I'm marking up for editing. Yeah. So there will be a lot of, aside from the ums and ahs, there will be me taking markers and highlighting things that need to be fixed. Uh, for those of you who have been watching all along, tonight is that night that I've been warning you about. For those of you just tuning in, I'm on chapter 9 of 20-ish chapters. So for those of you, so if you've just tuned in now, we're about halfway through the story. So probably best to go back and watch the rest, because I mean, sure, you can try and pop in now, but you're going to miss a lot of the story. So it's probably for the best to go back and watch the previous broadcasts. I have uploaded the clips; they're the full show, so feel free. And if you're on YouTube, then they're just available. Should be just available. Anyway, yeah. Let's see what else. Yeah. So because tonight is kind of a special episode, the reason why it's a special episode is because this is chapter 9, and then I can only assume originally at some point there was a chapter 10. Where that chapter 10 is, I don't know, but it's not currently here, or there's nothing labeled as chapter 10. There is a chapter 39, and there is a chapter 11. These are as close to chapter 10s as we've got here. I got chapter 9, chapter 11, and chapter 39. Chapter 39 might be a missing chapter 10 that was being put out of place so it could be tweaked and then put back in. I don't know, because the way I believe these files are from an old Apple II Plus clone program. So we're talking way, 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 way back. It might even be as lucky as being a PC XT. That's the name of it. It was like an IBM XT, which is also a very, very, very old computer. Because these stories were written back in 1988. So I know in 88 we had an Apple II computer. We had an Apple II up until like for the longest time. And I think we kept on having, I don't think they upgraded to like no, they got an XT right before I left home. So yeah, but honestly, that's where we're at. And so there's a very, very, very antiquated word processing system that sort of had chapters. And so that may have been what had happened if he was trying to work on a chapter and he couldn't fit it back in. He would have had to retrofit it. Anyway, that's way too much nuts and bolts of stuff that you guys probably aren't really caring about. You guys just want to hear, you're here for the story, hopefully. Or to look at like my weird bookshelves in the back. Anyway, I'm just going to hop right into it. I'm going to read chapter 9. Then what'll happen is at the end of it, I'm going to open up and I'm going to ask you guys, what do you think? Should I try and tonight kind of give a general idea of what happens in chapter 10? Or should I just try reading chapter 11 tomorrow night and we'll see where that takes us? These are questions. You guys can even pop it in the chat while I'm reading. I may not answer right away, or I may just try and like pause for a moment between scene breaks and kind of see if anyone like has any ideas, and that's fine. Even if you're not able to, you can always feel free to, well, Twitch, I'm not really sure how that's going to work. I don't think you can comment after. I would love it if you could, because that's really frustrating. One frustrating thing about Twitch that I haven't figured out yet. And if someone has answers for me on how to communicate with me when I'm not streaming, aside from obviously on my socials, which I will eventually put up in Twitch. I'm sorry, guys. I really, really, really will do this. If there's a way to communicate with me, I'll try and figure that one out for you guys. YouTube, you guys should be able to leave comments for me wherever. Even after the video's up, I think you can still put in comments and stuff like that. So I'm not too worried about that. I'm pretty sure. Or you can leave it on another video of mine, and I'll still get a ping. Because I also have shorts as well. So there you go. Let me think. Yeah. So I'm just gonna jump into it now. We'll recap afterwards. I'll keep an eye out for you guys saying stuff to me, and otherwise, let's get on with the story, shall we? So it's called Trollhunters, and it's chapter 9. The troll is coming up behind them at a shambling run. A troll could outrun a man on flat ground, even outrun a horse for short distances. Carnutron, however, had made sure that they had a sufficient start on the beast. The real problem had been teasing the monster along this far before letting it get close enough to make a rush for them. Kind of 28 days later, I guess. Derijua jumped from her saddle and scooped up the rope from the peg. She vaguely noted Carnutron off to her right, doing the same thing. Then she heaved. She heard the troll behind them give a triumphant roar as they slowed. Then the rope went taut over the stout tree limb. The horses rolled their eyes and danced with fear as the trap worked. The ropes lifted up a row of sharp wooden stakes from where they lay hidden on the ground. The stakes had been fastened to 2 crossbars, and the butts of the stakes were braced against a half-buried log. The row of stakes was nearly 40 feet wide, and by the time it had risen to a level with the troll's thighs, he had no time left to stop. He did try to fling himself to one side, but all that achieved was to impale him almost sideways, doing more damage to his insides. He screamed with pain and fury. "Mount and after him!" Carnutron shouted. Derijua realized that she had been staring at the wounded troll. She mounted and turned her horse. The troll was trying to push itself off the stakes. As she drew her sword, she saw that 2 of the stakes had impaled us. Luck for us, she thought. Her horse really did not want to go near the troll. She couldn't blame it. She kicked its flanks and it moved reluctantly. She swung her sword at the huge hairy back. She and Carnutron rode in and out, striking and withdrawing. Wait, that's just me repeating. That's not what's actually in the story. The troll tried to turn and fight them. They didn't always get away in time either, and each of the horses in particular, suffered glancing blows of the troll's big fists. But the broken off stake inhibited the troll's rapid healing, and after a long and ugly fight, it lay on the ground, no longer moving. Carnutron jumped from his horse. "Quick, pile brush around it. The only way to kill it for sure is to burn it." Still gasping with the exertion, she dismounted and began to do as she was ordered. She had visions of the beast lunging to its feet again every time she threw another stick on the corpse. Carnutron paused to light the fire with flint and steel, and she kept hauling in the wood. Taking burning twigs, Carnutron spread the fire to several places, then grinned a tight grin at her. You can't stop hauling wood now. I think we've done it. Or sorry, you can stop hauling wood now. I think we've done it. From what I've heard, though, it's best to see that the body is well aflame before we leave. I've heard scary tales of half-burned trolls rising up to fight again. Worn and tired as she was, she thought there was a time when she would have shuddered at the thought. All she could think of right now was the hand of silver coins offered by the villagers for ridding them of this troll. At least she and Carnutron would be able to provide themselves with little more in the way of supplies. Jerked beef was good enough, if nothing better was to be had, but a little variety would be welcome. She reflected on her previous belief that life as a caravan guard had been rough. King's palaces compared to this, she thought. Then considered further. At least it's easier to watch out for people hunting us out here. Artran stumbled through the damp brush, a misty sense of the forest. There was moss, very various early plants here and there, the smell of an animal that was not a horse. After this past winter, that was a relief. He knew he was going to have to rest soon, otherwise he would simply wear himself out to the point where hunters would come upon him lying collapsed on the ground. One of his concerns had been food, but he found bits and pieces of edible herbs. He even discovered some wild carrots, which helped keep him going, and he thanked Varian, who had taught him to recognize such things. He also found certain herbs which he could crush and sprinkle to aid him to deal with dogs, at least a few hours at a time. Little known fact, that would probably be a capsicum. Just putting that out there. I am that weird girl. um, from time to time, he set snares and tripwires just to keep the hunters wary and perhaps slow them a little. Despite the old horse blanket he had taken with him, the nights were cold and the days were cool. Even though the odds were against him, he seemed to be keeping well ahead of the hunt. He never once, for instance, heard a hound baying, which augured well for him. The cold always slowed him and disturbed his sleep. Struggling on, he used whatever means possible to confuse his trail, such as going a bit upstream or downstream when crossing a brook. He would toss a twig in the air and go whichever direction the larger end had pointed. He had once tried to summon a fireball, simply for the warmth it gave him. He immediately had the feeling of someone reaching for him, and quick mind picture of the bearded face of Master Caltron. It seemed clear to him that Master Caltron was aware of any magic he might use. He glanced at every tree he passed, hoping against hope to see the sigil marking of the border of the Holy Band's territory. He also feared coming around some grove of trees or some hillside to meet a band of horsemen dressed in archaic armor and helmets. Not yet, though, not yet. He occasionally felt touches of something he recognized as a form of magic. It occasionally brought a brief glimpse of Master Kaltor. That worried him. Did Master Kaltor and his assistants have some magic ability to track people moving through their domains? If so, that it would that ex- uh, that explained why he had not heard any dogs or hunters on his trail. And every day he was a little closer to escape, just a little closer. Nor was he deluding himself completely, for he knew that his pursuers had resources not available to him. He might not escape, but he would try his best. Kellis Do looked around apprehensively, then looked at Varian. The magician was not visibly doing anything save for sitting on his horse, but his face was strained. Varian? She said tentatively. Hmm? Gothraz's statue is following us. Mm. She looked at him, shrugged, and let her horse drop back to its usual place in line. If he knew about it and it didn't bother him, then she wasn't going to worry about it. Artran felt a little feverish. The symptoms matched what Varian had taught. No more than a mild flu. A fever was right now was a problem. He didn't have time to hole up somewhere until he felt well enough to travel. And yet, sickness could slow him down, even cause him to hallucinate and lose his way. The sickness might even worsen and he could die of it. He took a bit of willow bark and chewed it. The taste was nothing fancy, but it would help a bit. Cool day followed cool night, and still he went on. He was sure something was wrong now. Sure that by now he should have been hearing the sounds of hunters behind him, but there was nothing. It worried him a little. Was he only being allowed to think he was escaping? When he came to the edge of the territory of the Holy Band, would he be greeted by a small patrol of men with old-fashioned arms and armor? But on his first attempt at escape, there had been no fancy kind of drill. Just three riders who had come out and ridden him down, and then brought him back to the main camp, nudging him with their spears. The Holy Band did not play complicated games. He waded a stream. There on the other side of the trees was the mark he had been searching for. The border! I've reached it! But he knew he was not completely safe. The Holy Band would follow, even to larger towns, to reclaim their property. He saw a movement in the trees ahead and grabbed for his hoofpick, his only weapon. The first person he could make out, however, was Varian. Varian! Varian! Artran stopped a moment, then hurried forward. The magician seemed so worn and weary as to be almost unable to sit on his horse. Beckel was next to him, and on the other side was Pothor, and just a little back, partially hidden, was Kellis Doch with an arrow nocked. There was a sudden whooping shout behind him. He did not need to look to know who was there. At Duggan Racis, the Holy Band! Something massive surged out of the trees where his friend stood, rushing past. Surely that was a hallucination. Why would the statue of Gothraz be here? Where had it, where had it come from, and why was it here? There was a sound of battle behind him. He staggered forward on unsteady legs, and Beckel came forward to meet him. Beckel grabbed him and led him to a horse that he recognized. My horse! You didn't abandon me! Can you mount, boy? We have to be out of here. Beckel glanced from Artran to the source of the sounds of battle. From somewhere inside him, he found the strength to pull himself up onto his horse. Then he held tight as they galloped away. He vaguely remembered that his last gallop had ended him enslaved to the holy band. He gripped the reins tighter. Gatra's feast scowled at his agents. They managed to get out of the city on you. And then, so they managed to get out of the city on you then, did they? And the best story you can come up with is that they seem to have gone off troll hunting. One of his chief agents nodded briefly. Then that would be the way of it, sir. Twice we've tried for them. Once on the streets, when they walked home from their work, and again as they rode out the upland gate. First time we tried to knock them on the heads and be off before anyone were the wiser. But I swear it were as if someone had warned them. They had swords out and ready just as we began to move in, and we lost 3 men out of it. They tried to make us think they were heading for Mathokowan, but they'd been talking to Trollhunters for several days. We had a boy watching, and when they left for their inn, he ran to us and we got set. It was hard doing a proper ambush at the gates, and the old fellow glimpsed us first and started the fight before we could get ready. It was like someone had warned them again. Someone had warned them? Someone had warned them? I'll tell you who warned them. You were skulking about, looking so unobtrusive that everyone in Finnish must have noticed you. Of course they were ready for you. The chief of the agents was fiercely indignant, but it didn't do to let a high-powered sorcerer know you were indignant. No, sir, I don't think it happened that way. Sir. No, sir, I don't think it happened that way, sir. Humph. Well, have you taken any measures to track them to see if they indeed have gone troll hunting, or this is another use? I'm sorry, this is another ruse. Oh my goodness, reading hard. Sir, I know a man, a skin trader, who goes wandering the mountain villages from time to time to see what hides they might have to sell. I described the 2 of them and gave him a pigeon to send back word to me if they had ever gotten word of them. A little while ago, I heard that they are indeed hunting trolls. Hunting trolls, are they? Tell me, did it never occur to you that this man, Carnutran, is a mercenary? And for the right price, he might almost certainly deliver her to you all tied up with no need for this back alley lurking? It did occur to us, sir. But from all we were able to discover about this man, Carnutran, he's not one to sell out his friends. And from all accounts, he wouldn't desert a woman in trouble. He would not. Okay. Wow. Wow. Okay. Hello, White Knight. Again, can we say 1988? Like 1988, many years ago. He would not indeed? I wonder how hard you tried. But never mind that. We are going to have to track him down. I hope you have among your crew a few people who are going to get along in the wilderness. We will find this pair, and when we do, leave matters to me. We ought to be able to do things without the need for fighting. Artran was a bit worried about Farian that first evening. The magician had prescribed medication for Artran's fever, then stumbled to his own bed and fell asleep. He's weary, lad, Callisto had read his glances. He helped my escape, didn't he? It came as a sudden realization to Artran, the meaning of those indefinable touches of magic as he made his way through the woods. The archer nodded. We'd been about to come after you when he looked in his bowl and discovered that you were already on the run. So he worked hard to hide you as you came out. Thank you. Thank all of you. She waved his thanks away. You're one of us. We should leave you stuck out there? In the morning, Varian looked much better. It was only at close quarters that one could see the tightness of his mouth. Well, young man, there is a saying that no experience is ever wasted if one can learn from it. Did you learn anything? He thought about his time as a slave, his escape, and his frequent use of the lessons Varian had taught him. Indeed, his use of the small medical knowledge to help with the horses had helped people forget his first escape attempt. Oh, yes, I learned a number of things. Most of them were lessons you taught me, lessons about plants and mushrooms and so on. But I learned how to make plans long in advance. I also learned about the history and practices of the Holy Band. Varian nodded. Better than nothing at all. It was a rather dismissive way to deal with half a year's slavery in the horse barns of the Holy Band, followed by an escape through the woods, pursued all the way. But he was not going to make a protest about it. Perhaps he had learned a little patience as well. Instead, he asked, the statue of Gothraz, how did it come to be with you? I brought it. The magician paused. Perhaps it would be better to say that I loosely attracted it. I don't think one really brings things like that. It seemed to me we needed something on our side against whatever the Holy Band might have. It seems to me that you warned me against trifling with things like that there's no way of telling just what they might or might not decide is an enemy. True, answered Varian with a small smile. But there always comes a time when one has to go against the general wisdom. And knowing when that time has come is part of what makes a wise magician. Artran felt himself flush a little. Rather than saying anything more on the subject and getting himself in deeper, he said, I thank you, all of you, for coming back for me. There's another series of shrugs from around the group, and then Varian handed him something which he recognized immediately as his wand. You're going to need this, the sorcerer said. The Holy Band, as you have certainly learned, does not easily give up its property. I shall have to teach you a little more magic. Oh, I'll have to teach you more magic a little sooner than I intended. But fortunately, this latest experience of yours has given you something of a basis for the training, the patience and so on. But don't be too cheery over it. You're going to have to learn a lot of lessons along with the what? Along with the magic. And you're still an apprentice. Okay. The apparatus consisted of a long tube of wood with several metal bands around it. The magician in charge, rather unprepossessing fellow by the name of Ganinash, pointed out the features of it with a skinny hand. Your Highness will notice the bands of brass strengthening the tube. These will allow one to cut back on the spells which hold the tube together, thus lessening the likelihood of spells interacting improperly. Why not make the entire tube out of metal? Leave aside completely the spells and hold it together. Ah, yes, Highness. Gananash slid a thin hand over his long but sparse beard. Such things have been tried, but there is great difficulty in making such a tube. When one folds the metal around, one has to make a seam, and usually which is naturally a weak part of the tube. Too often, the force of the spell rips open the seam. And if you make the metal tube and hold it around with spells you use on this contraption, again, Highness, there is difficulty using such spells on such a mass of metal. What we have here is a small model of what I hope to build, but this will serve as a demonstration of what we might do. So, carry on with the demonstration. Everyone moved back behind the barricades, including Gananash, who held the cord attached to the trigger of the sashto. There was some muttering about people who had little faith in their own creations, but the magician ignored these. Some 50 feet up the field was a long palisade, about 10 feet by 20 feet wide, braced behind more logs. Gananash watched the king, who nodded shortly, and the magician pulled the string. The sashto bucked and roared and produced a cloud of smoke, and when people were able to see once more, a considerable portion of the log palisade was broken and twisted. The king turned to the magician. Good enough against a small log palisade, but the wall of Vinich is something more than that. Do you think you'll be able to handle a real city wall? Gananash was a little more confident now that his demonstration had gone so well. Highness, this was a mere demonstration. We will work more immediately on a larger and more powerful sashto, one which will batter down the walls of Vinich with ease. He suddenly seemed to realize how overconfident he sounded and stopped talking, merely standing there and bowing repeatedly. See that you do. I'm gathering the army, and we march in a week. Two at the outside. I would hate to think what might happen to you if you should not manage to live up to your boast by the time we reach Finnish. And what happens, the king thought as he turned away, if we reach Finnish at the same time as Gatras Fee arrives with his special woman for his special spell? Well, I've given the fellow a lot of time. So far as I can see, all Gatras Fee has achieved is to spend a whole lot of my gold. If he arrives in time, then perhaps he and Gananash might fight it out between them to see who has the privilege of knocking down the walls of Finnish. He gave a short bark of laughter at the thought, then steadily ignored the courtiers who looked at him, wondering at the cause of the mirth. Do, do, do. We're running a bit low on supplies, Dirishua said. And while we've got a few silver pennies in our bag, maybe we should stock up. What do you know about the towns near here? Carnutran gave the matter a little thought. I seem to recall about a town a little north of us. They had trouble with a troll last year, and someone got rid of it for them. That ought to put them in a decent mood to talk to Trollhunters. Dirishua nodded. She had already discovered the various reputations that Trollhunters had throughout the uplands. People being people, it didn't surprise her at all. Everybody took the blame for the misdeeds of a few. Suppose we head that way tomorrow? Okay. We're not putting blame on no one, understand? The stout and swarthy village headman, said the stout and swarthy village headman. But something's gone wrong. He was sweating, as a man might who was coming very close to saying that two swordsmen, an archer, a magician, and a magician's apprentice were all liars. What seems to have gone wrong then? Asked Varian. He did most of the talking since Pothor's accent tended to get in the way. Beckel tended to lose his temper, and Kellis and okay, wait. Beckel tended to lose his temper, and Kellis Do tended to lose patience. They say the troll is back up there, sir, and we know that the people of that place have been out hunting from time to time. hunting whatever people might be on the roads and taken unware unwary. Oh boy. Hunting whatever people might be on the roads and taken unwary. There we go. So, okay, so we're leaving off this final paragraph. That's where we leave off. And then, yeah, so now I have to figure out if I'm going to, what I'll do is I'm going to tease chapter 11, the first paragraph of chapter 11. And you guys can let me know before I turn off everything, before I sign off, what you guys think, whether I should try and do a bridge chapter, or if we're good to kind of go into I don't think so. I think we have to I have to do some writing here, which, I mean, it is what it is. Hold on here. Okay, so yeah, I don't know. I think it was late in the evening, nearing the time when the villagers would retire to their homes and latch their doors. Suddenly there's a flash of light and the sound of cracking stone from where the pillar stood in honor of the Great One. With fear in their hearts, the villagers approached. There was a sound of music played on the syrinx, a calming music, and something shone from the direction of the pillar. See, I'm just, so that's where it jumps from. It jumps from like that one, like they're about right getting like there's a whole chapter there that I've got to figure out what happens in between the two. Um, what I might just do is take a break tomorrow night, much to everyone's chagrin, but I think we're just gonna take it up on Monday. And yeah, like I think that's my feeling on the matter, because then we can read the whole entire rest of the story together, and then I can backtrack after that because I can kind of figure out where all the timelines go for everybody. Because as you can see, there's multiple POVs in the story, and so it gets a little more complicated than simply if it was just following Artran. We could probably go A to B to C, and at the very least, we probably know that in chapter 10, like in chapter 10, it sounds like there's gonna be a whole crap ton of action here. And given the average chapter length, like the because each of the tops of these have like a word length, how many words were in the chapter. So I'm thinking this is probably a nice juicy like 3,000 word chapter, lots of action, because um, I'm thinking that this might be where everybody kind of collides together. We'll know better on Monday, because on Monday we'll kind of have like it's because 10 would be halfway through. Another thing I can also do is double check chapter 39, which might be chapter 10 in hiding. I will take a look at that tonight. I will take a quick look at chapter 39. I will see if chapter 39 is actually chapter 10. I know it sounds confusing. It's confusing to me, but that's fine. Chapter 39 might be chapter 10. I will confirm. I will let you guys, if there is a chapter 10, you know what? I'm going to do it right now because I don't want to I want you guys to be able to know whether or not whether I'm going to be reading tomorrow night or not. So give me a second here. Bear with me. Okay, chapter 39. That's weird. Nope, nope, has nothing to do with chapter 10. The missing chapter 10. I really, really need to see if I can try and find something in there. I'm gonna try and hunt and scour things, but I don't think I think chapter 10 is I'm gonna have to assume that chapter 10 is gone, which means I have to recreate chapter 10. And chapter 10 sounds like it's really, really exciting. It sounds like it's the chapter because it's like the climax of the story. I mean, like if you're doing like Freytag's, pyramid, it's like whoop whoop. But yeah. So what I will do is gonna take a break for tomorrow night, and then we'll regroup on Monday. I'm really sorry, guys, because it's gonna be this whole entire like story, like chapter of what could have been. But I definitely have to read. This is live edit. This is first time reading this story. It's it's basically like a kind of like a rough draft. So we do what we can. I wish I had more to read to you. I wish I had a chapter 10. But what I can always do is once I have other stories to read after this, but I can always reread this once I've gotten the chapter 10 created, and then we have a full story. And I have to figure out what chapter 39 is because I don't know what that is at all. Like, at all. It doesn't even make sense to the rest of the story. Who knows? But I'm going to quit rambling for now because I'm out of story for now until Monday. So I'll talk to you all then. I really want to appreciate everyone who's tuned in. Thank you to all my subscribers, both on Twitch and on YouTube. I really appreciate both you guys. Well, all of you guys, not both. Both streams. Oh boy. Anyway, I will talk to you all again on Monday. Thank you all for tuning in. Please feel free to like, subscribe, do all the things. Wait, one CTA, one CTA. Um, you know, just support. And you can support just by watching. So I appreciate that. Thanks, guys. And I'll talk to you again tomorrow. Nope, Monday. Monday. Okay. Talk to you then. Good night.